How's it going, everybody? My name's Shane, and welcome back to another episode of the Horror Basement. So, before we begin today, I just have, unfortunately, some bad news. Um, as you know, if you've been following the channel for a while, um, I recently reviewed House of a Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Rejects in anticipation of Rob Zombie's new movie, Three from Hell, that's going to be released later this month. Uh, But unfortunately, I just looked into it, and the closest theater that is screening the film is over 50 miles away from where I live. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to go see that movie in theaters and review it. Um, I'll probably, once it hits streaming services or DVDs, I'll get a copy of it and do my review once that happens. But in the meantime, to tide you guys over and, deliver as promised on another Rob Zombie movie, today we're going to be talking about his uh, 2016 film 31. Now, much like House of a Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Rejects, this is written, directed, and produced by Rob Zombie. And this follows a group of uh, horny, pot smoking carnies that end up getting abducted as they drive through the desert and are forced to survive for 12 hours as they're hunted down by ever increasingly dangerous murder clowns. But just to back up and give you a rundown of the main cast, uh, there is the main character is Charlie, played by Sherry Moon Zombie, making another appearance here. And then there is the matriarch of this group of carnies, Venus, played by Meg Foster. And then there's Roscoe, the main male character, who is kind of an asshole and seems to just be a dick to women. And then there are the other two that make it, out of the first act and become main characters are Panda, who is a Rastafarian guy, and Levon, who is an older black gentleman that wears a cowboy hat. So there are other characters in their group. There's a few, girlfriends and a guy that drives their van around. But they're driving through the desert, of course, because this is a Rob Zombie movie. So it has all the. It felt very familiar watching this after just having watched House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects, because you've got like the grainy footage on the opening credits, the 1970s music, and of course, there's this group of foul-mouthed people driving through the desert. So it felt like this is kind of, even before he started working on Three from Hell, he still had this inkling to continue to explore stuff in a similar vein to what he had done with House of a Thousand Corpses and Three from Hell. But they end up stopping the van in the middle of the road at night because there's a bunch of like weird scarecrows in the road. And sure enough, their van is swarmed by a bunch of dudes in masks and like black and white prison uniforms, and all the members of the group that I didn't mention by name end up getting killed. And it turns out the people who abducted them is Malcolm McDowell, who we all remember as Alex from A Clockwork Orange, and a couple of his lady friends, and they're all dressed like 18th century French aristocrats, and they explain that they're going, since it is Halloween, they're going to be playing a game called 31, hence the title of the movie, where our 5 characters have to survive 12 hours in what looks to be like an abandoned and derelict like industrial plant of some kind, while their captors watch them get hunted by murder clowns. And the first murder clown we meet is a dwarf who is dressed like Adolf Hitler and primarily speaks in Spanish and just little bits of English. And his name is Sickhead. Now, when we first watched this for the first couple scenes, both me and my wife thought they had called him Shithead, so we'd been calling him Shithead, the Mexican Hitler dwarf, for most of the movie, for most of the parts he's in, and he ends up attacking Levon and stabbing him a bunch of times in the shoulder before finally Levon and Sherry Moon Zombie are able to take him out. And, a lot of the movie just follows this formula where they'll introduce a clown or clowns, and then the gang will fight them, and then, of course, the aristocrats or the captors will come back over the loudspeaker and introduce the next set of murder clowns, and it kind of goes from there. So the next two we have are Psycho and Schizo Head. They are two brothers who are really obsessed with sex, and they're brandishing chainsaws and threatening to, in their words, just fuck all the holes of the female characters, Charlie and Venus. And the gang ends up fighting them, and eventually they get the upper hand, it being 4-on-2, and they're both killed by their own chainsaws. I'm not sure, honestly, which one is Psycho and which one is Schizo, but one of them ends up falling on to one of their chainsaws and getting gutted, and the other one, Panda, decapitates with a chainsaw. And the next two murder characters are Sex and Death. Now, Death is this very tall and broad German gentleman who has scars all over his face and is wearing a tutu. And Sex kind of looks like a cheap Harley Quinn ripoff. She's got the pigtails and the clown get-up and all. And Sex ends up going after Roscoe, who is injured from the fight with Psycho and Schizo, while the others kind of do a 3-on-1 on Death. But eventually Charlie gets a hold of Sex and is able to stall Death long enough for the gang to take him out, and then Charlie slits Sex's throat. But not before they fatally wound Panda. So we're down to just Charlie, Venus, and Roscoe. And Roscoe is just barely holding on. He's lost a lot of blood. And then we meet the movie's main antagonist, or main murder clown, Doomhead, who was actually in the first scene of the movie, and it's discussed by the characters that a church group went missing, and presumably the same thing happened to them. And we meet Doomhead in the very beginning, where he is talking to a tied-up priest, and then ends up basically gutting him with an axe. And so the aristocrats who are playing this game are getting a little concerned, because I guess they weren't expecting the gang to make it through the first 5 murder clowns they sent out. So they give Doomhead a call, and Doomhead is in the what looks like the shittiest, most derelict apartment I've ever seen, and he's got Nosferatu on the TV, and is watching that while going at a girl doggy style and just screaming at the top of his lungs. So that's interesting. But of course his phone rings, and his lady friend for the night is like, "Don't you fucking stop." But he stops, and takes the call, and they agree to pay him double of what they paid him last year. So he tells her to hit the fucking bricks, and he heads to the weird murder warehouse compound and gets his clown makeup on. And he has this coat and ascot on to where he actually kind of looks like Count Orlok from Nosferatu, and with like the very minimalistic clown makeup, basically just white grease paint, he cuts a very intimidating profile. And he manages to find Venus while she's by herself, separated from the group, and just stabs her like way too many times, and then kind of just sticks the knife in and slides it up, basically gutting her. So the rest of the movie is them just running away from Doomhead, and they eventually get out of the compound and find like an escape hatch that goes to a storm drain. And Roscoe stays behind because he's so injured to fight off Doomhead and give Charlie like a head start. And what that basically boils down to, Doomhead's got like, he's dual wielding knives and just runs, basically almost does like a Naruto run at Roscoe, who misses his one swing with a crowbar and then just gets stabbed a bunch of times. But as Doomhead is like stepping over him, he like grabs his ankle in one last ditch effort to buy Charlie some time, and then Doomhead kills him as well. So Charlie emerges from the storm drain and is walking down this like old country dirt road and finds this abandoned house. But sure enough, Doomhead comes in right behind her, and before she has a chance to react, just like punches her as hard as he can in the forehead, and like blood is trickling down her face, which I mean, she was already covered in blood from the proceedings of the night. And now, while the scene was going on, I kind of saw this coming, but Doomhead is like standing over her, giving a confident soliloquy. He he lights a cigar and starts quoting Che Guevara of all people, and is saying about he's the fucking champion and all this. And right as he's about to kill her, which he has had the opportunity to do for the past like 3 or 4 minutes, he's been running off at the gob. The loudspeaker comes on, and weapons down. It's been 12 hours. And all the aristocrats are like, oh, well, we've never had anyone actually win. They always all die. So what are we going to do here? And Malcolm McDowell's character is like, I'll take care of that later. Don't worry about it. So they all take off their aristocrat makeup and change back into their normal clothes. And them and all the, naked women in masquerade masks that have just been standing in the background, they all presumably go home. And Charlie is just walking down the road, beaten, battered, covered in blood. And sure enough, Doomhead pulls up behind her in a van, and they're just kind of staring at each other as Doomhead kind of does the crazy dude smile. And then the movie cuts to pictures of her and her friends all dancing and having a good time as the credits roll. So it's presumed that Doomhead, or whatever his real name is, ends up killing Charlie, but it's left, kind of ambiguous. But overall, I really enjoyed this movie. There wasn't too much to complain about. It being only, I think, an hour and 42 minutes, which is pretty short for a modern movie. It keeps going at a good pace. This characters are always either fighting or planning stuff. It moves around. Bleh. All right, we'll try that again. The story moves along at a good pace, and all the performances are good. The the clowns especially are super entertaining because they just get to play like absolute fucking maniacs. And particularly Robert Brake, who plays Doomhead, like I said, like the final boss character. He gives a really powerful and convincing performance, which is good because apparently he is also going to be in Three from Hell. Like I said earlier, I will review that once it's on streaming services or on DVD to where I can get a hold of it. But if you're like me and not able to, if you live too far away from a theater to actually go see Three from Hell, and you haven't seen 31 yet, I would definitely recommend it. Or if you're a fan of any of Rob Zombie's other works, like this is definitely, it fits well in his like canon of films. It almost feels like this could exist in the same universe as the Firefly trilogy or whatever you want to call that movie series. So like I said, highly recommend it. Really enjoyed it. Not particularly scary. It's more of like a thriller, and there's a lot of good fight scenes and action elements that are really entertaining. Now, if you're new to the channel or you've only seen my reviews of modern movies, like I've done, like I said, House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects, and a while back I reviewed Get Out, Jordan Peele's movie, I just recommend you watch my other series, the Classic Horror Review. I'm reviewing 50 different films ranging from the 1920s up to the 1960s. And so far it's been a lot of fun. A lot of good movies and a lot of not so good movies. But it's entertaining either way. So that's going to be it for today. Just thank you for watching the video. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. If you so choose, subscribe. And leave a comment letting me know any other old movies or new, more recent movies that you want me to review next. And I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you.